Good afternoon, Southern California. I'm John Baldwin with John Hart Real Estate, and today is June 20th, 2022. Want to talk about what's going on in the market today. Have some interesting article, well, one article, but it's reflecting on multiple videos I've done recently talking about what this market is doing and why we are in a fundamentally different market than we were in these '07, '08 crash. So, what I like about the article is it definitely goes into a lot of these same things that I've been talking about for weeks here. So let's jump into it. I'm going to slide it over so you can see the article. And this is from CNBC.com today. And here's why the housing downturn is nothing like the last one. Now, I disagree with the word downturn because it implies that we're going to have, values reduced right now. Most of what we're seeing right now is not reduction in sales prices, but reduction in listing prices. This happens when people reach way too high and then have to come back down. There are a lot of agents who have a listing strategy of just tell people you can get, the moon, and then when they don't get it, they reduce, and then it goes to what the market price is. For the past several years, the pricing strategy that has worked best in Los Angeles is to actually price on the low side. Why? Because you get more people looking at it and you can drive that price up. So when we want to drive price, we list at the low end of the range and just launch it because we get so many eyeballs, so much traffic, so many showings that it just launches that price and we hit our target, which was usually over the last several years 10 to 20% above the comparables. So we're literally targeting basically 20% over asking. So, I even did one in Silver Lake where we got 30% over asking. Now, we knew that the $1 million list price was a little on the low side, but the $1.3 million was spot on where we wanted to sell it. So that actually hit 30% over asking. So here we are in this article, and they're reflecting some of the things. The housing market has cooled off a bit after an incredibly hot stretch fueled by the pandemic. That doesn't mean it's about to be 2007 all over again. This is what I've been saying. American housing market is far better health today. Yes, this is talking about how the people who have been getting mortgages over the last decade, call it even 15 years, since 2007, 2008, they've been people with good income, good credit, and assets. We're not talking about the liar loans where it's like you've got a pulse, here's $500,000. We're not talking about the negative amortization loans or the teaser rate loans or any of the subprime garbage that created very unstable foundation for the market from '04 to '07. This market has a rock solid foundation. Why? Because everybody who's bought over the last decade has had credit, income, and assets. These are fundamentally you'll get further down in the article here. They're going to actually mention the average credit score is a 751 currently versus a 699 during the last market cycle. So this is, telling you that the people who bought recently are more financially secure than we were during the crazy years from '04 to '07. So there aren't as many risky loans, mortgage delinquencies, although high home prices are forcing many people out of the market. Yes, as prices rise and interest rates rise, your pool of buyers shrink. This is something I talk about every week. All of this has people asking, is today's housing market in the same predicament that it was over a decade ago when the 2007 to '08 crash caused the Great Recession? The short answer is no. Thank you. America's housing market is in far better health today. Yeah. Basically, the lenders learned, or let me put it this way, the lenders relearned the first rule of money lending. Will the person pay me back? They stopped caring about that from '04 to '07 because they were basically originating loans so fast and then chopping them up and selling them off that they didn't think they had to care about whether that loan actually performed properly because it was off their plate by the time the problems happened. So they forgot the first rule of money lending. Will that person pay me back? Because they thought they could make their money up elsewhere. So, this is one of those. You don't forget the first rule of money lending. All right. For the 53.5 million first lien home mortgages in America, the average borrower FICO score, this is what I mentioned, is a record high 751 versus 699 in 2010. That's a big. I mean, people with a 751 FICO score. I mean, anything over 720 is pretty much considered the gold tier credit. 751 is really good. I've got a lot of borrowers in the 800 plus range lately. So, I mean, they're just beyond golden. Um, what else can we get in here? All right. Yes. The other thing is that, this is, I mentioned in the previous video, there is so much equity floating around the market now because people who bought over the last 20 years and haven't sold, they just made a lot of money. As the market went 20% per year, now they're sitting on huge amounts of equity, and it says we have 11 trillion in tappable equity right now sitting across the country. That is massive. That's about wow. They're saying it's a 34% increase from a year ago. Okay, so what does this mean? This means, and here we are, total mortgage debt in the United States is now less than 43% of current homes. What this means is if a lot of people lost their jobs, if a lot of people had to, figure out their finances again, if something happened, they have tappable equity. They can pull a home equity line of credit, or God forbid they can't get a home equity line of credit or something like that. They can turn around there, sell their house, and have cash in the bank. So they're not going to be doing short sales or foreclosures just because the market shifted or they had a personal, job issue. They're going to be able to turn around and sell their house because there's enough demand, but they also have enough equity that they're going to come away in the black, unlike during the, market bust of '08. A lot of people were just doing short sales or foreclosures to get out from under a debt they couldn't pay. They were going to walk away with zero. So this is a different situation than we were dealing with, a decade plus ago. What else should we get into here? Just 2.5% of borrowers have less than 10% equity in their home. So, I mean, if there is an issue, people will have a cushion, but people can also have equity to turn around and sell and have cash in the bank. They're not going to be put in a situation where they have to do a short sale. Now they're going to go into we got more arms right now happening, but we're at 8% of the market versus 36% of the market in the 07-08 crash. So we have a lot fewer of the adjustable rate mortgages. So I think that's a good sign overall. Mortgage delinquencies are low. Again, people have equity. People, can tap into it. They can turn around and sell. So we're not going to see a big wave of foreclosures or anything like that. But this is just a great article. I mean, I could keep going into this, but there's a lot here. But you're basically confirming what I've been saying for weeks about what's going on in this market. We're returning to a normal market scenario instead of this incredibly cheap money, super low, artificially low interest rate environment. So we're returning to normalcy, and that seems weird to people because we've had over 2 years of this artificially low interest rate environment. So when things return to normal, it seems very strange to us. But during the crazy years, '04 to '07, we were doing backflips for a 6% interest rate because that was incredibly low at the time. So we've been sitting in a very, very advantageous position with interest rates over the last several years. And now that we're returning to a normal interest rate environment, it feels like, rates are really high, but when you look at a long enough scale, we're still pretty low on the historic interest rate scale. So, The biggest problem in the housing market now is home affordability. And I think that is, and they're going to get to it. Yeah. While inventory is starting to rise, it is still about half of pre pandemic levels. Rising inventory will eventually cool home price growth, but the double digit pace has shown remarkable sticking power so far. So again, we're, the biggest variable, this is why my broker refers to it as the magic metric, is months of inventory. And we are still at that 2 months or less of inventory. So now we are seeing more come online for the summer selling season. But it doesn't look like we're going to have enough come online to get to that sort of 6 or 7 months of inventory that could really create that downward pressure. So, but definitely check out this article, cnbc.com today, in the real estate section. Definitely worth reading if you want to get into some more of the details here, if I'm glossing over anything. But those are the highlights. But I think it just confirms what I've been saying in all these videos that I send out to you each week. This is what the data is telling us, and the data is telling us we are not going off a cliff. We're going from crazy appreciation to like normal appreciation, which is that sort of steady, slow burn in that 3 to 7% range, depending on where you are. But that's what we're looking at now. Of course, if the overall economy just takes a nasty turn, all bets are off. But just looking strictly at the real estate data and interest rates, I know the Fed's slamming the brakes on things pretty aggressively, but our big issue is lack of inventory. And basically, if we're not going to have like a downturn in the classic sense, if we're going to have more of a plateau, then waiting can really cost you because interest rates are going to continue to rise. Now, we're hoping that in the second half of the year, the interest rates are going to soften a little bit, but the Fed is being aggressive on inflation. So we're going to have to see how things play out with the mortgage lenders. So again, this is a really interesting time, but you're probably looking at now being more affordable than next year. So give me a call, 213-973-3777. Let's talk about your housing strategy. Let me get you hooked up with one of my fantastic lenders, and let's get your house sold.